Welcome again. My name is Joe Daniszewski, Joe D, and I'm president of the Democrats Greater Tucson. I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your weekend to attend this important debate. Our two candidates for the nomination of the Democratic Party to the office of Pima County Treasurer are Sami. Sami, good to see you. Thank you for being here. And also Brian Johnson. Brian, good to see you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, thanks to Mr. Curt Prendergast of Tucson Agenda for volunteering his time and expertise to moderate this debate. Mr. Prendergast is also volunteering his time to moderate clean elections, and we really appreciate your doing that as well. It's quite a selection of debates. I was looking.
Yeah, and I would do as many as they'd let me do.
Well, that's good to hear. It sounds like they got the right guy for the job. So, we would like to take this opportunity to recognize all those who helped make this event possible: Andrew, Mike, and most of all, the candidates and you coming today. Again, we really appreciate it. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, for almost 40 years, we have pursued our mission of keeping our community informed about local candidates and policies. This is the first year, Mike, and you can reinforce this, that we've actually had Democrat debates.
Yes, this is an innovation for us.
So we really appreciate, again, your being here. We invite you to visit at the dgt.org, where we post all our incoming events, including our Monday noon Zoom and our monthly happy hour. So we do have an in-person event like this at Brother John's. It's the third Wednesday. You've been a frequent flyer to that event.
Yes, I have.
And we really appreciate it. Sami, we'd love to see you if you can make it.
I've been there once, I gotta come back again.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
You can join the Democrats Greater Tucson for just $24 for all of 2024. Again, I'd like to acknowledge the work of our program director, Mike Bryan, and our program volunteers, Andrew Bott and Krista Young, for the work they have done in planning the logistics of this event. The Tucson Agenda is a daily newsletter focused on local government and politics. It is run and 100% owned by two local reporters. Talk about commitment. That's wonderful. And Curt Prendergast and Caitlin Schmidt. They launched the agenda in July of 2023 with the assistance and encouragement of Hank Stevenson of the sister publication Arizona Agenda. They depend on subscriptions for most of their revenue, so please take a moment and take a look at subscribing at tucsonagenda.substack.com for just $10 a month. And of course, please, on your way out, don't be afraid to mention to somebody sitting out there as the staff of the library and thank them for hosting us today. It's a beautiful facility. I'm sure we'll be back here again for an event. So thanks again, and off to the races.
Wonderful. All right, thank you so much. All right, so before we get started, one thing we're gonna do is we're gonna flip a coin. We're gonna see who goes first on these answers. How about, I'm gonna flip it, and you just tell me how you call it in the air. All right?
Okay. Tails.
It is tails.
No.
All right, so would you like to go first or second?
Certainly I'll go first.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
No problem.
Great, so before we do that, I'm gonna go over the terms here. So we're gonna briefly outline the rules in terms of this debate, agreed to by all parties. We expect this debate to last about an hour, give or take. As moderator, I will ask a series of questions about issues of importance to Pima County residents for both candidates to answer live here. Both candidates were given these questions in advance of this debate so they could prepare their best answers and to provide written responses with references. Those will be published by dgt.org and by the Tucson Agenda. The candidates will have 3 minutes to answer these questions for you today. Each candidate will have the option to take 2 minutes to rebut the other candidate's response, followed by an optional 1-minute counter rebuttal. After my questions, the candidates, they submitted one question for each other, which I have held in confidence. After they answer my questions, they can ask each other their question, and we'll see what happens. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond, followed by an optional 2-minute rebuttal and 1-minute counter rebuttal, just like with the regular questions. We invite the audience to help enforce time limits by giving a round of applause if a candidate exceeds the time limit. All right, we are ready to get started, and you said you wanted to go first.
Yes.
All right. Starting off the basic level is most voters know the treasurer position exists, but they might not exactly know what a treasurer does.
Sorry to interrupt. Are they going to do opening statements?
Oh, would you like to do opening statements? We should do that. Let's start with Brian Johnson. Could you tell us a little about yourself and where you're running?
Okay, my name is Brian Johnson. I'm a 26-year resident of Pima County. I live out in the rural community of Picture Rocks. I had worked for the county government for 14 years, and when this opportunity came up for the treasurer's office being an open seat, I considered all of my experience, my 14 years in the county, which included 5 years in the county finance. And with that experience, I figured this was a great opportunity to really actually get in there and make some, I think, very important changes we need to make in the treasurer's office, which I'll discuss a little in these questions that come up. So I want to thank Tucson Agenda and DGT for doing this, and I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Sid, would you like to?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Curt. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sami. I'm a Democrat running for Pima County Treasurer. Live here in the city of Tucson in the Menlo Park neighborhood. I bring an experience and varied background in this campaign for the treasurer's race. Now, we have an opportunity here, which hasn't been done in more than 40 years, is to flip this current office, which has been held by the GOP for a long time. We have the opportunity to flip it from red to blue. We have a clear chance. As we saw 4 years ago, when at the then time incumbent treasurer Beth Ford got reelected just by a little over 5,000 votes. This time, we can get it done. I feel like I could be the one that could do that. But I need your help first with the July 30th primary. I bring a very background to the office. I've worked at the local level for Pima County, worked at the federal level for the Congress, and worked in the private sector as well. And I bring all those experiences and knowledge with me into this race in the treasurer's office, because ultimately what you're electing is a leader of a department that has a very big impact that's not noticeable to Pima County residents, but ultimately helps in keeping the county government and also all the various levels of government, city, school districts, fire districts, running and operating. And as time goes on, I want to hear your questions as well and hear your comments and meet you and say hello to old friends who are here in the room as well. And I look forward to it. So thank you very much, and let's get this on.
Okay, great. So like I said, we're going to start at a very basic level. That is basically, what do you see as the treasurer's main duties? Johnson?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so in Arizona, the county treasurer's office is best described as both the de facto tax collector and the county's banker. These are basically the essential duties of the treasurer: collecting the property taxes for real and personal property and other revenue from assessment, state funding, and other local government revenue sources. Maintaining accounts for the governmental entities in the county, like the school districts, fire districts, the Pima Community College, libraries, and so on. So also the disbursement of funds to those government entities as required, managing the cash flow so the funds are always available as needed. Investment of public funds according to statute and regulation, ensuring the safety and liquidity of those funds, and maintain records and issue reports as required by law and also the audit regulations. But one of the essential steps of the tax collection process is to prepare or assemble the tax roll and issue tax statements. There is no statutory requirement for the treasurer to do this. There's no statutory direction for any office in the tax administration system to create the tax roll. Naturally, the function has been the responsibility of the county treasurers, which is how it is done in all of the Arizona counties except for Pima. For the past couple of decades, the county administrator had assumed the responsibility for the tax roll. Now, with changes in the county administration, it is still unclear how this process will get done in the future, But as your next treasurer, I'm aware of the situation. I have worked with the tax assembly in the past, and I would be prepared to manage many of these inevitable changes.
Mr. Hammond?
The job as a treasurer is basically a few things. One is they collect, like it's been said, they collect your property taxes. When you go and you pay them twice a year to the treasurer's office, and that money therefore gets dispersed to county government, city government, school districts, fire districts, library districts, because all of those are what they call your secondary property taxes you see on your tax bill. Second thing, the job of the treasurer is they're the banker for the county government. All county departments have to put their money within the treasurer's office. It has to be deposited there, and they hold that money. That's a key job. Another key part is we're the chief investment officer, so all the funds that the county has, any investments they do, the treasurer is the chief investment officer. They do that for the county. As well as the fourth part we do here is, and this affects cities, towns, school districts, can be called governing district, fire districts, is we disperse money on the 15th of every month to those various jurisdictions and taxing authorities as well. That has to be done, and that's per state statute by the 15th of each month. Usually it's done sooner than that and things like that, but that has to be done. And the one thing that's never talked about that's a key part of the job is doing it right, making sure that the books are balanced, making sure it's done right, making sure there's checks and balances. That's a key part of the job, because I'll explain as we go on through this debate. Look what's going on in Santa Cruz County. The treasurer resigned under investigation by the FBI and the state. As a result, they had to put a new treasurer, and they're trying to resolve their books and their financial mess that they're going through right now. But we'll talk about that more as it goes on.
Would you like to, any rebuttal or anything?
Yeah, the way, and Mr. Hammond is absolutely correct that the treasurer is responsible for all these funds and keeping the accounts, and it is also very highly audited, which doesn't surprise me why they got caught down in Santa Cruz County. And there are very strict audit regulations, and I'm going to say 90% of it is software driven. Recently they just installed a new ERP, or enterprise resource planning system, which handles most of those financial transactions.
Mr. Hammond, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, great. All right, and then, so if elected, what changes, if any, would you make at the treasurer's office? And you can start again.
Start again? Okay. I see a need for change in the culture in the treasurer's office, and that would lead to some structural changes in the office, with new units focusing on different aspects of services to the county's citizens and businesses. Government is a service, and that will be the focus in the manner in which I direct the operation of the treasurer's office. Almost all of the routine accounting and financial transaction functions of the treasurer's office performs are software driven, like I just mentioned. A competent IT unit is essential to maintaining those systems. For the many other employees, though, they're in clerical positions, and they don't have a career path to incentivize either their performance or longevity in the office. That's why the treasurer's office has dwindled to a couple of dozen employees over the years. And the way to transform that situation is by creating responsible positions with which to serve the needs of the people and the community. Managing short-term investments is also an area needing improvement. I propose staff dedicated to working with the business community so that we can yield value from those investments that support our local prosperity. The treasurer's office has an immense potential to be a valuable government resource.
A few things I'd like to do if elected county treasurer to change. One is I want to change it, but for improving the customer service. So I'll give you a quick little example here. I was talking to my parents the other day on the phone. They said, we got a letter from the treasurer's office saying we hadn't paid our property taxes for the last 12 months. Not true. My parents paid them on time. They had proof of it. So they contacted the office and said, your records are wrong. We have paid it. Here's the information. Look at here, you can track it. They said, we'll get back to you. They did get back to them a day later and said, you are correct. We were wrong. You have paid it. We apologize for that error. That's something that should never happen. If it happened to like someone like my family, it can happen to anyone else in here or outside of this library right now. So obviously we need better technology and better tracking of that. That's one thing I would improve. as well as the customer service on that can be done. And when going into customer service, let me just focus a little more about that briefly here is, you shouldn't always have to come to us at the treasurer's office, come to them. The treasurer's office should come to you, meet you where you're at. Not literally, but in terms of your needs and services and that. Because ultimately, from the treasurer on down, the employees of the office work for you, the people of Pima County, not for themselves, not for anyone else. The second thing I'd like to work on is working on the tax delinquent foreclosure process. When persons are delinquent on their taxes, they can lose their homes ultimately. It doesn't happen immediately, but after a few years. We can reform, if not prevent that from happening. And the third thing I'd like to work on is one thing that we could do as an office. It would take some dedication of more staff, but it would happen not immediately, but within the first 12 months of my tenure as county treasurer, is work to create a financial literacy programs that we can roll out to our school districts throughout Pima County. Because when it comes to kids learning about financial literacy, you learn it in the home. Some kids get a good understanding of it, some don't. And if you don't have good financial literacy skills, you can be on the wrong footing as you go into adulthood. And let's try to start that now so they don't get off on the wrong foot. And let's put them on the right foot.
Would you like to hear about that?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, the treasurer is an elected position, but it's not a policy-making position like a county supervisor is. Do you see it as a political office to advance your party's ideals? Why or why not? And Mr. Hammett, let's start with you this time.
The only part that's political about the office are two things. One, who you elect, and two, whoever you elect, that name on that door. That's political. Otherwise, when it comes to the operations of the office, that is not political. It doesn't matter about whether the taxpayer, is a Democrat or a Republican or whatever party you may be. What matters is that you are a Pima County resident, as far as I'm concerned. And that if you have a need or a question, and if I'm the elected treasurer, we as a staff will address that accordingly as well. But however, when it comes to the ideas and things I want to do, some people say, well, you have no policy-making authority. That is correct, I don't. But you know what? Words are policy, ladies and gentlemen. The things I want to do, the words that come out of my mouth, is a form of policy as well. So the ideas I just talked about right now, those are my policy ideas. Some things I can do, some things I'm going to have to round up 3 votes in the Board of Supervisors to get done, get their cooperation, and as time goes on. But no, it's not a political job, nor should it be per se. It's just getting the job done and making sure it's done. Like I said, just to go back, the only part that's important or that's political, who you elect and their name on that door.
Scott?
Okay, yeah, the treasurer's office is primarily ministerial, but it doesn't work in a political vacuum. One area where the treasurer can have an impact is in the management of short-term investments of the public funds. I'm promoting a Board of Supervisors investment policy in investments which the Board of Supervisors hasn't had since 1995. And that policy would be to direct the treasurer's office in managing those investments in alignment with the county's prosperity initiative. And as in the 1992 to 1995 investment policy, Board of Supervisors Policy 16.1, there needs to be a measure of accountability as in quarterly reports. And these reports should be and must be made public. By inviting transparency through accountability, the treasurer will inevitably work in alignment with the policies of the Board of Supervisors. An example is investment in climate resilience, which is an element of the Prosperity Initiative. When we're paying attention to our investments, we wouldn't likely be investing in fossil fuel companies like Chevron, which is one that I recently saw on the investment report, in the Treasurer's investment report. So in July of 2022, in a Bloomberg article, our state treasurer stated, "We have the ability to go to companies that stand for the values that we believe in," Arizona Treasurer Kimberly said in a phone interview. That's a quote from that article. She went on further to state her Republican values, which I don't agree with, but this is how politics does get into the office, like the Treasurer's office. And I think our policies that are Democratic Party policies, the Board of Supervisors Prosperity Initiative, is what I would call.
Okay. Mr. Hammond, would you like to rebut anything?
Yeah, I will respond basically. So what Mr. Johnson was talking about here about the policy, it's just a proposal. It's not a policy. It's an idea right now. Good idea, but it's not policy or law right now as we speak. Now, mind you, under the statute, the board of supervisors is what is known as also the Board of Investment policy. Board of Investment, they can use that and exercise that statutory authority if they want. But otherwise, at the end of the day, the county treasurer, the chief investment officer, they have the final call on that. So if there's no policy right now in place, like there isn't, or if the board is not taking an active role, then ultimately it would be our job, one of us who's ever elected, to do that. And of course, I am going to look at policies that are environmentally, sustainability, governmentally sound, but I'm also going to have to do it and follow it within the contours of what the current statute dictates. There are limits on that, what we can and cannot invest in, and we have to follow the statute ultimately when it's all said and done.
Mr. Johnson, would you like to respond to that?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay. As treasurer, you would have to deal with county residents who might not be able to pay their tax bills. How would you deal with overdue tax bills from low-income residents? Mr. Hamad, let's start with you this time again.
Okay. So that, you know what, this is where, like I talked about at the beginning here, and I'll say it now, is this is where we gotta, we gotta, if we can, give a little grace to them, show what we can do, as we've seen through various turbulent events in the last 20 years of our history of our economy, where we've seen where people have had a hard time paying their homes and things like that, or the value has gone underwater as a result of things, and which includes their property taxes trying to pay as well. And one thing you're seeing here in Pima County, and even across the state, is defaults are on the rise. Defaults on paying the property taxes on their homes. And the ones that are getting affected by that are senior citizens. Those are the ones who are losing their homes and going into homeless shelters as well. We're seeing. One is I would like to create, if I'm elected, I would like to beef up and if not expand it, even redo is the customer service division within the treasurer's office, making it more of a forward-facing, public interacting, getting out there type of division, Like I said at the beginning, instead of you coming to us, I want them to go out to the public and hear. So an example would be, like I told you about my parents about the letter earlier, instead of them receiving a letter about it, what they do now, the treasurer's office thing, the letter that you're behind, how about instead saying, hi, this is Sami from the treasurer's office calling. We notice you're behind on your property taxes. We just want to inquire and see what's going on, and we find out about the situation. Well, from there as a result, let's help put them in the right direction and get them back in that financial footing. There was a program created during the COVID, which is still around with less money though, unfortunately, called the Homeowners Assistance Fund, which was created by the Department of Housing, which got a lot of its funding from the federal government. And there was some state money put in last year by the legislature and Governor Hobbs when it comes to housing. And some of that was set aside for housing assistance to help people pay for delinquent or overdue property taxes. That's one thing I like to do, is have that customer service staff to be kind of be like a guide and a navigator for that. Because that's important, because when it comes to government and the work that's done, people don't remember too often the good things that are done. They remember the bad things that are said and done. So I want to change that around.
John?
Yeah, I just want to start by saying that the treasurer has a legal, a statutory responsibility to collect the property taxes that are due. And there are also statutory methods to ensure that the taxes are paid, for the various taxing jurisdictions in the county, like we mentioned before, the school districts, the fire districts, the library, Pima Community College, and so on. And but this question sort of addressed about residential property, although if you look at the reports from the about the tax lien sales and so on and delinquencies, you'll find that they're mostly vacant land or commercial properties. But so in most cases, low-income households are not homeowners, okay? The property taxes on rental property are collected from the renters on a monthly basis as part of their rent. And for those who have sufficient income to qualify for home ownership, financing their homes, property taxes are included in their monthly house payments. So the issue of low-income homeowners struggling to make a twice-a-year tax payment isn't really that prevalent. So, but the one group of homeowners, like Mr. Hyman mentioned, that may have an issue of paying property taxes are seniors on a fixed income who own their homes outright, who've paid off their mortgages, thereby having to pay their property taxes directly to the treasurer's office in October and April. For those seniors, there is a property valuation protection program administered at the assessor's office. There are other relief programs for other groups of homeowners, like disabled veterans, which are also administered through the assessor's office. And the reason the assessor and not the treasurer is responsible for the relief programs is because valuation is the only really adjustable element to the property tax.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Hammond, you want to respond to that at all?
No.
Okay. All right, so the tax system is complicated. What steps would you take to educate the public about how the system works? Mr. Johnson, let's start with you.
Okay, so Title 42 of the Arizona Revised Statute is a complicated set of processes and rules that govern taxation in Arizona. And property taxes consumes a good portion of it. A search for county treasurer yields 345 instances in Title 42 in which the treasurer is referred to. So educating even the treasurer's office staff and all the nuances contained in the statutes would alone be an immense undertaking. But a general understanding of how property tax is arrived at and applied should be explained to the public by the treasurer and the office staff. There is a definite need for accessibility to information and understanding of property taxes. It will require a coordinated effort with the assessor's office and the board of supervisors to explain how property taxes are arrived at and what they're there for. Currently, the county administration has a property tax hotline that goes to the tax assembly unit in the finance department, then calls are directed to the treasurer assessor, and often that runaround causes a lot of frustration. So I will propose that the assessor and treasurer integrate their data systems so information is more accessible to anyone looking to plan a commercial or residential development, or to simply understand how an individual's property taxes are consistent in their neighborhood. The recorder's office already is engaged with a software vendor called Tyler Technologies to maintain integrity of property records. Now the assessor's office has used them to a certain extent, and the superintendent of schools has also adopted elements of the Tyler's all government data structuring, and the treasurer needs to also get on board with this technology, the Tyler technology software. Once the property data is accessible across the different offices and departments, it can be presented to the public through Pima maps. And there's a tremendous opportunity to make, with today's technology, to make property tax information accessible and understandable.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hammond?
To make property tax information more digestible, simple, very simple. It would be creating and beefing up a public outreach customer service division within the treasurer's office. One thing that Pima County Assessor Suzanne Druby did when she took office after she won in 2020 is she realized and noted that she had to make more information available to the public out there. So she created a very robust public outreach communications division. And what her staff does, as she's told me, is they get out there to various events, libraries and things like that, and host events to provide information about various services that the assessor's office does. Well, if I'm elected, I would like to work in partnership with her office about having staff from the treasurer's office tag along with hers so they can provide more information as well on a better basis. So when they look at their tax bill and can't understand it, they're saying, well, what's the secondary property tax for all these various listed columns on here, which might be school district, library, Pima College District, fire district, on and on and on. That staff could be out there to explain it to them and things like that. That's where I said at the beginning, I've said it again and again, I'll say, not them, not you, the public coming to us coming to you, reaching out, so we can answer those questions and assist them one way or the other.
Okay, so those were the questions that I drafted for the candidates. So now we're going to move into questions that they pose to each other, but they have not heard yet. So we're going to do, let's do Mr. Hamid's question from Mr. Johnson. Your professional experience aligns with the work of the county assessor. Why aren't you running for county assessor since you ran for the office in 2016 and 2020?
Okay, yeah, I did run for county assessor in 2016 and in 2020. The first time I ran in 2016, I was up against a long-term incumbent. Didn't do badly. I got 37% of the vote in the primary, which wasn't too bad. And in 2020, when I ran for assessor, there were three of us that were running, and Suzanne Druby, who's currently your assessor, was one of my colleagues who I worked with in the past. She had also run in 2016 as an independent. And we were sort of head to head, but what happened was I had, unfortunately, a personal situation where I pretty much had to, even though I was on the ballot, drop out of the race. So to be at home as a full-time caregiver for my wife. So I have all that experience. I have those 8 years of experience, 9 years experience in the assessor's office. And I also worked 5 years in the Pima County Finance Department. So I have even a broader view from then just the assessor's office. I have that broader view of the whole property tax process, where when I worked in the county finance, my primary job was litigation, property tax litigation, and complaints against the county. I worked alongside the county attorney's office on that. I was the layperson. And that encompassed everything from property records all the way through property taxes, including treasurer's deeds and foreclosures and so on. So I had that big, broader view. And I know Suzanne Druby is a great assessor. I wouldn't run against her because she's extremely competent and has a lot of experience, just like I have.
That's fine. Mr. Hamid, do you have a rebuttal?
No.
Okay. All right, so now let's see Mr. Johnson's question for Mr. Hamid. Transparency, in particular financial transparency, is a desirable trait for the Office of Treasurer. You formally entered the race in January and actively campaigned to get on the ballot by April 1st. Why did you not file a committee statement of organization for campaign finance reporting purposes until May 8th?
To answer that question here, inside baseball, but here goes. I filed to get in the race on January 12th. I hit the ground running. Turned in 2,628 signatures on April 1st. My opponent turned in 1,250 signatures. We needed 1,111. He only had 139 over the minimum. I had 2.5 times over. Look what I did in a lot more time than him versus him getting in on November 1st. But to answer his question, why didn't I turn in a financial statement to create a committee to raise money? Simple, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't start raising money until the last few weeks, actually. I focused from January 12th to April 1st on getting signatures and going out there and meeting voters. That's why. That's why I did that. I have nothing to hide. When you see my next report coming out between July 1st and July 15th, I got nothing to hide. You'll see the money I'm raising and things like that and what I'm doing out there to get out there and get my message out there to the voters.
Mr. Johnson, to answer your question.
Just to remind Mr. Hamid that campaign financing is not just about how much money you raise, it's also how much money you spend.
I appreciate you saying that, but you know what? If you got nothing to raise, you got nothing to spend. Simple as that.
Okay. Would you like to respond to that? Good?
No, that's fine.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to take a moment here. Are there any questions from the audience that we could pose to our? Do you have a question here?
Yeah, okay, so it's kind of just some experiences that I have had.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I recently also got a statement saying that my taxes were late.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I haven't verified, but I went ahead and paid them, so I'm gonna have to go back and check and see that. Now, the one thing is that I bought a HUD home in Barrio Hollywood, approximately 3 years ago. On the tax base, that home was condemned, yet my taxes are $3,500, and it was listed as a rental, okay, originally. So so I have to go do an application to change that. But why is that happening? Not only that, that's one item. The second part, okay, we talked about the elderly maybe not being able to pay their taxes on time. Now the city of Tucson wants to condemn vacant homes and acquire those homes. That's a proposal. I haven't heard about it again because that's what Phoenix does. Why is it that we can't, like for the elderly, yes, there is a limit, you can ask for assistance, but the fact remains that it doesn't, you know, when the person dies, the homeowner, or they're not able to keep up their home or whatever because everything's so expensive, you know, somehow the community needs to support that person or that property so that there should be a fund or something to help them, not lose their
Okay.
home. You know, I mean, if the city takes the home over and the house is worth, even condemned homes with a property in the city, you're looking at least 200,000 in valuation, at least 2,000. You know, so what would you guys do to help with that?
Yeah, Mr.
What's your
Howard?
policy?
Let's start with you.
Well, in your situation, you're talking about here about the home in Barrio Hollywood, it sounds like there you'd have to talk with the assessor's office first, because they determine whether it's a structure there or land, or if it's been condemned, or something has happened, like it's fire. As a result, that determines the different tax status of it as a result, basically. And so that's one thing. And the second thing is, I agree, we need to work on that, because like I said, on the rise of defaults are affected, the ones who are affected are senior citizens. You know, their social security can only get them so far, as we know. But yet their expenses go up and up and up. And therefore, we need to do that and help them. Like I said, my first proposal idea, like I said, is create a staff that would help assist them and get them, point them in the right direction and get them on that right financial footing, whether it's the housing assistance funds or other services out there like that at all. Because even though we can't get rid of their property taxes, we can't abate them, if you will, what we could do is just get them in the right direction to help to get that assistance to help get them made whole again financially and things like that. Put them on that financial footing as well. And also, regarding the issue like the houses you're talking about, ultimately the decision on that about where that money would go to help assist people, that's the Board of Supervisors' call. As much as I would like to have that authority as treasurer, I would not have that. That's the Board of Supervisors, since they control the purse strings and how the money, the county's taxpayers' money is spent. And so that's one thing. But if I'm elected, I would like to look into that more, work on that, and I will work like heck to get 3 votes on the Board of Supervisors to help to work on that problem and issue that you brought up right now.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, your question illustrates one of the major problems I think that we do have right now in that whole property tax administration is that we've got different silos of data, and like I said, property records for the recorder's office, the assessor for the valuation, and so on. And then actually right now the county finance department has the tax assembly that puts together your tax bills and tax roll. And then you have the treasurer's office. And all these silos of data are not working together. And that's why I made that suggestion about integrating those data systems so that when you have an issue, for example, with a property and the valuation, they're not paying taxes, that at least we can look at that data across the board and try to understand what it is actually going on so we can respond to you in a way. But right now, if you go to the treasurer, they'll just say, well, you owe the taxes. If you go to the assessor, oh, well, that's the valuation we put on it. There's no talking to each other. And that I think that should definitely need to be changed. So, and as far as the funding for helping for the city when they condemn, the treasurer, the city has the authority to condemn property, but the treasurer doesn't do anything with that, okay? So if the taxes are delinquent, if somebody walked away from the property and decided that they didn't want it anymore, or in the case maybe somebody died and family didn't want it, they just thought it was a liability, they'll walk away. And then it reverts to the state, and then the county treasurer actually is the one who disposes of the property and sells it and so on. So, but what they do is,
That's time.
okay, time, thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Hamid, do you have any type of response to that?
No.
No? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes?
I have a
you
question.
No?
My question for both candidates is, are there aspects of the treasurer's office operations that have been delegated or assigned to other parts of county government that you want to bring back into the treasurer's office?
Let's start with Mr. Johnson.
Okay. Yeah, one of them obviously is the creation of the tax roll. In all the other 14 counties in Arizona, the treasurer creates a tax roll. Right now, it's for the last 20-something years, it's been done in the county finance, and and the reason for that a lot was both the attitude of the treasurer, who said they were, like I had said earlier, there's no statutory requirement for them to do it, But also, we also had a very strong county administrator who liked to have control over a lot of that stuff. So I would see that going back. I think there's some movement now that the assessor might be taking over some of that responsibility, but that'll be in flux. But I could see that going back to the treasurer's office. As far as other issues go, I can see that there's, for example, you have to work with the other county departments, but like, for example, real property takes care of the disposition of properties that are delinquent on the property taxes, which makes a lot of sense. But the treasurer should have some oversight as to that as well, since it's their responsibility. Also, one of the other revenue sources that the county administration is taking care of are things like the GIPLETs, the government property lease excise tax. Now, the treasurer is responsible for reporting that to the state, but yet that's being managed through the county finance department, which it shouldn't be. It should be managed in the treasurer's office. Also, issues about foreign trade zone tax situations where, okay, is that time? Okay.
Mr. Hamel?
One thing I want to say, just briefly, just backtrack for a brief second. I was talking about how homeowners are low-income people that own homes. They're not low-income. A lot of people that own homes are working families, ladies and gentlemen, working men and women that are obviously want the American dream and own their own piece of their own wealth. And that's what home ownership is about. But to answer Mike's question here is, one thing I would like to bring back, it's not with another county department, it's actually outside of the county, is the county's treasurers, their IT department is outsourced, actually. When you outsource things like your IT and other services and things, guess what you lose? You lose control over it, actually. Because what if that vendor shuts down? What if the person that wrote it moves on? You have no experience, you have no knowledge, you can't control it as a result. So therefore, one thing I would do is, if I'm county treasurer, I would bring back and put the IT back in the house, in the office of the county administrator. And when it comes to the issue of tax assembly that my opponent's been talking about, interesting story. A few weeks ago, I was working at High Court Field, the last weekend of the baseball games of the series, when U of A played Oregon State. Comes up to me is Dr. John Moffitt, a man who worked at the county for a long time under County Administrator Chuck Huckleberry, and we were talking about the county treasurer's race. And he said, Sammy, I'm the guy that wrote the program for what they call the tax assembly that's done the finance. I said, oh, really, John? He said, yeah. I said, okay, I'm aware of it. I said, if I'm elected, we need to have a talk then, poke your brain more. So if I'm elected, I'm not going to go off making a change immediately. I got to listen and learn first and see what's going on, because that's how you best can do that. You just don't go in making changes from the get-go, because you don't cause disruption. When you cause disruption, it leads to other problems.
Mr. Johnson, would you like to rebut?
Yeah, I'll disagree. I'll be the exact opposite view about going to outside software vendors. I've seen a lot of the technology out there. I've seen what's been done in other jurisdictions and other places, particularly when I attended conferences, even within the state. Like, I regularly attended the Arizona Tax Conference. You can't hire the technical ability that these bigger companies have for creating software. You just couldn't, you'd never get that kind of quality. You'd get some good people, but building homegrown systems, to me, is just not a thing. We have a bunch of them. We've got to move away, like I mentioned, going to Tyler Technologies for the assessor and the treasurer and so on. So.
Great. Was there any other questions from the audience before we do?
Can I do a follow-up?
Do any, you got a follow-up to that question?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, are there any advantages in terms of efficiency, administration, cost savings in moving some of these outside vendor or outside agency, or move to the county services back into the treasurer's office? What do we get advantage in terms of value in doing so?
Yeah, Mr. Hamel, can you do that?
Well, first and foremost, you actually pay more when you contract, actually, not less, actually. You pay a lot more. So you pay a lot more money, but if you bring it back in-house, you're gonna pay less, because one, you set the salary, and two, you set the benefits for is three. And three, also, you have it in the budget there, actually, if you will. So I think there are some more benefits than it is just to contract it out, actually, basically. And also saying that you get better quality and things like that. No, not really, you contract it out, because you don't always get better quality. If you contract something out, the vendor holds it all under control. Just because they have a contract, they can say, I'm working on it. Oh, we're trying to get it done. Well, you have no control. And also, if it's hacked or messed with, it's susceptible to something like that, guess what? You can't control or know what's going on and how to fix it at all. Whereas if it's in-house, if it's being hacked or messed with, you can fix it and work as fast as possible to do that, because it's right then and there and you have the control over that.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, when you have a lot of these homegrown systems and they don't really work together, you get a lot of process problems in the end. And I know, because I not only worked in litigation when I was in the finance department, but the last 3 years I've also been a hearing officer on the Arizona State Board of Equalization. So I heard the appeals from many of property owners, and I know the frustration they have with a lot of that process. And believe me, a lot of some of the litigation and a lot of these appeals were totally unnecessary if we didn't have these homegrown systems that we do have today. So I totally disagree with Mr. Hamid on that, because I've seen from my own experience it's inefficient. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Hamid, you want to counter-rebut or anything?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, go for it.
If these quote-unquote homegrown systems don't work, then where's the accountability? Then you talk about how you run the county there. Why didn't you hold somebody accountable on your end as working in the assessor's office did, or being on the State Board of Equalization? One thing, when I've served on boards and things, I served on the Pima County Merit Commission. So I've served on the Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind, which is the state board. I serve right now on the Arizona State Board of Optometry. One thing I do as a member of those boards I've done is there's an accountability aspect to the job. You hold people accountable. When I'm county treasurer, I got to hold people accountable. I have to hold the department and the staff accountable to make sure it's done right. If it's not done right, guess whose flap it falls on? Can't blame them ultimately. The buck has to stop and end with me, ladies and gentlemen. One thing, if I'm elected, I've said this, I'll say it again during this campaign, hold me accountable if I'm elected. For the next 4 years, hold me accountable. Because everything that's said and done by my office, including words out of my mouth, ultimately starts and ends with me.
That was Mr. Johnson, if you would like to respond to that.
No, that's fine.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions from the audience before we move? Oh, we have one here. Go for it.
Following up on what this lady back here said, is there any system that you can imagine? People pay their rent, even if they own their property free and clear. Every year they have to pay their rent and taxes. And yet if they get behind, they can literally lose their property. Is there any mechanism to help, or would you have any mechanism to help people like that not lose their properties? I forget what they're called, the people who get the liens on them and stuff. Do you have any ideas for keeping that from happening?
Mr. Johnson, would you like to say?
Yeah, okay, so the way the process works is this. So you have 2 years from, if you're delinquent, well, initially 2 years until the tax lien can be sold, okay? So you have, in that time, the treasurer can make payment plans and so on to mitigate, to help that property owner, okay? You can't take away from the interest that is owed on those property taxes. You can't diminish the taxes, give any type of relief on it, because that's owed to the taxing jurisdictions, the school district, and so on, okay? So after that 2 years, the tax lien can be sold, and then they have 3 years, and I think that may have gotten changed to 5. I haven't seen the end of that legislation yet. And the reason that those investors, those tax lien investors come in, because they can offer you a much better interest rate, for example, than the statutory rate, which is now like 16%. They will generally offer 6 or 7% to So they're basically buying the lien and you pay them back off. And it's between the property owner and the lien holder at that point. They don't have to foreclose in 3 years or 5 years. It can do however they work it out. And hopefully situations can happen. And like I said, last year you had 10 foreclosures. And if I hadn't looked at all of them, but I can tell you from my experience that most of those are probably not homeowners, regular people, homeowners. So,
Mr. Hammond?
Well, 10 is one too many, actually, as far as I'm concerned. It's just too many. You don't want that, especially for homeowners here in Pima County. You don't want that at all whatsoever. In regards to the tax lien that my opponent was talking about, I remember when I was out getting signatures during the petition phase, and I met a man at the 4th Avenue Street Fair, and we were talking about this. He said, "You want to stop these delinquent tax foreclosure auctions?" I said, "Yeah, I'd like to stop or prevent them," I said. He said, "What about me? I invest in this stuff." Here's the interesting thing. He couldn't sign my petition because he's a convicted felon. So I said to him, I said, "You're a convicted felon? You're allowed to do this?" I'm a little surprised then. But the point here I'm making is, this shouldn't be a business in that sense. It's a business, but they're going to be going after the people who own those homes, and they're making some money off it. They shouldn't do that already, even though maybe 16%, like my opponent was talking about, cut that in half, 8%. That's a high interest rate. That's a very high interest rate, and people shouldn't have to be doing that, being held at mercy, knowing that if they don't pay it, or if they refuse to because they think the interest rate's high, then that tax lien holder who bought it can turn it around as a result, just say, "I foreclose." In fact, under Arizona law, ladies and gentlemen, they don't need a reason to foreclose. They can just say, "Hey, I bought it, I foreclose." Even right now as a current homeowner, right now you pay a mortgage, right? I do too as well. The owner of my home, who holds my mortgage, can just turn around and say, "Hey, we're foreclosing on you." No reason or need needs to be given under Arizona state law right now. That's pretty sad and scary as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, to change that whole situation would require major changes in the state legislature. Okay, we're not going to do it on this level at all. So if you don't think it's right, and if you get the ear of a legislator, then bring it up to them. So.
Okay, great. Mr. Hamid, do you want to say something else?
Yeah, just one last point. Let me try to answer your question a little better. I saw you come in, so I hope you heard some of my points and things like that, what I talked about, and try to answer your question about that. That's why you want to work to the Treasurer's Office. You want them to be interacting and forward-facing with the public more, reaching out to homeowners, to property tax owners who own their homes and things like that, who are struggling and underwater on their property taxes, to reach out and see how to assist them, if you will. And even it's just that little nudge of the point in the right direction can go a lot further as far as I'm concerned. Because like I said earlier, I'll say again, when you think about your property taxes, you say, "Oh, damn, I got to pay my taxes twice a year and make out a check to the treasurer." Well, maybe we can change that narrative and say, "Oh, hey, you know what? I was running behind on my taxes. The treasurer's office contacted me and gave me a hand and pointed me in the right direction where to go to get some assistance," and things like that.
Okay, sure.
I just wanted to make a clarification about software and hardware.
Okay.
I used to work for Exxon. I worked for a lot of different companies over the years. I was an IT manager as far as different organizations. And when you have a proprietary software company coming in there and taking over your actual advantages as far as for databases, for like ADP, I think a lot of people have heard of ADP. ADP takes care of a lot of different, as far as it goes, financial things and paying. But when you give that control to ADP or any other organizations, you cannot actually take care of that piece of software. That software is the proprietary, usually of the company that wrote it. But if you have people inside, and I've seen software written by kids that right out of college that are ridiculous, and others are really well done. I think the key is you have to actually have somebody who knows what they're doing and be able to have an oversight on them, and then being able to actually get the whole organization going. Now, I don't, and Pima County is obviously a pretty large county as far as, Arizona is going. Other counties is very small in other states. Example would be Jersey and New York State. The bottom line is you have to have a quality person to take care of that actual software. If you get something from Oracle, they'll give you the base product, and then you modify it to take care of your needs. So I don't think that in this day and age would be an issue. but you have to have the right staff doing it. That's the key. That's the big key there, so that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Well, I would
Hopefully I
like.
didn't confuse you.
It all adds up.
I could go further, but I
I
don't go
bet.
in the weeds.
What I would like to do here is I would like to wrap this up. I would like to give you all the chance to give your closing statements. We started with you, Mr. Johnson, for the intro, so I'm going to start with Mr. Hamid for your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank you all for coming today. I know it's pretty damn hot out there, and this is a great place to be in. I don't blame you one bit. And I also want to thank Curt here at the Tucson Agenda for being willing to moderate this today. I really appreciate you taking your time and doing this on a Saturday. And also to Joe and Mike of the Democrats of Greater Tucson for putting this event on. Every time you guys do an event, gentlemen, you guys do a good job, whether it's live or on Zoom. It all comes together well. So thank you for hosting this. You got a choice to make. You got a choice to make in this election. You can elect someone with ideas or someone just doing business as usual. I have ideas and I want to lead. Part of leading is you have to trust the people around you. As county treasurer, I will trust the employees that help make that office run like clockwork. Because when they do a good job, it works out for you, the taxpayer, better. I ask you to vote for me to help make some changes, to make it better, to bring us more forward, and to go to the next level when it comes to the issue of the treasurer's office. Like I said at the beginning in the opening, it's a small office, but has a pretty big impact in this race. Hasn't been open in 24 years. It's the first time it's an open seat, and then people are paying attention as a result of this primary, and of course as a result of the general election. Whoever you send between me and my opponent to the general election. But I ask for your vote in this election. I ask for your vote to make those changes. I ask for your vote. I'm going to work hard for you. I'm going to be accountable for you. I'm going to bring my experiences and knowledge of working with people in the public to the treasurer's office. And I'm working collaboratively with the various partners within Pima County government, the county administrator, the county board of supervisors, and the other county row officers, as well as the jurisdictions and the other taxing authorities here within Pima County. I ask for your vote in this primary when ballots go out July 3rd, and the last day of the election, the primary election day, July 30th. My name is Sami Hamid. I want your vote. If you want to learn more information, you can go to my website, voteSamifortreasurer.com. From there, you can go to my social media pages as well, where I post a lot of information about what my campaign is doing and things like that. You can also donate as well. I would love for you not to donate just your money, which is helpful in this race, but also your time, your effort, and knowledge out there. That goes a lot further as well. So I ask you to consider voting for me, and I would greatly appreciate it, and I thank you very much, everybody. I look forward to talking to you more after we're done here, and may you have a good Saturday and weekend. Thank you.
Mr. Hamid's absolutely right about Republicans have had this treasurer's office for well over 50 years. And even in 2020, we had a great Democrat running who had lots of good experience as in administration and knew finances very well, and still couldn't get him over the line. So your choice now is going to be which one of us has the experience, which one of us has the background to be able to go and beat that Republican candidate. And I have that experience, and it's not just because I know it's going to be a tough race in November. I really know that. But at least with my experience, we have a shot at taking it to be a Democratic office. And that's why I would ask you to go ahead and vote for me, Brian Johnson. My website is Johnson, the numeral 4, PCTreasurer.com. I'm also on social media as well. You can find me there. And I want to thank everybody for hosting this debate, and it was a great time, and glad to see all of you here. Thank you.
Okay, so that wraps up this portion of the debate. I want to thank all of you as well for coming. And if you would like to see the video of this, it will be at dgt.org, and we'll also make it available at TucsonAgenda.com. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, Adrian Fontes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org? and if you subscribe, it's only $20. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.
Everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. As all of you know, Arizona Democrats have had a lot of important wins over the last few years. We won 2 U.S. Senate races, and we delivered Arizona's electoral votes to President Biden and Vice President Harris. We elected Governor Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. Now, those elections were close, and our victories mattered. Arizona Democrats from the federal to the local level have delivered real results for our state on critical issues like combating climate change, lowering prescription drug costs, protecting the right to vote, and preventing more restrictions on abortion access. The Democrats of Greater Tucson offers the opportunity to hear from elected officials and candidates about that important work and the issues that matter to them. That information will be invaluable as Arizonans head to the polls. So this election cycle, whether you're signing up to knock doors, make phone calls, or joining the Democrats of Greater Tucson to hear from and speak to Democrats in our area, please know that your voice matters and we need you on this team. Thank you.